Hello again, and welcome to What's New with Summon and 360 and Toda Services. We'll do a review of recent functionality, upcoming releases, and talk about some recent updates that we've had. I'm Brent Cook. I'm the Director of Product Management for Summon. Today I'm joined by Amy Pemble, who's the Director of Product Management for Toda and 360 Services. And today we'll take you through a variety of topics, including some recent accomplishments for Summon, and talk some about the November quarterly release. Then next, we'll dive into highlights around the CDI development that we've been doing in 2023. Got some great new functionality to share there as well. Also, we'll take some time to dive into 360 and Toda Services and talk about the November quarterly release for those services as well. And we'll finish up talking about some upcoming webinars and ways you can get involved. And as I mentioned before we started the recording, we will take your questions at the end. So please be sure to submit any questions you might have in the Q&A tool. And we'll answer them to the best of our abilities at the end of the webinar. So first, I want to talk a little bit about our release schedule for this year, and then we'll dive into some functionality we've done. It's been a very busy year with 3 releases already completed. We have another one that we're currently in the preview environment for now for the November release. Hopefully you've been able to go out and see some of the functionality there. Much of the functionality in the November release isn't really visible or may require processing after the November release has been completed. And I'll go into some details when we go through the features for that release in just a moment. But I just want to remind you that we do have those releases. The production release for the quarterly release will be on November 1st. That's a week from tomorrow on Wednesday. For months when we do not have quarterly releases, we do have maintenance releases, and those always fall on the first Wednesday of all other months as well. There is no preview for those, and as you've noticed recently, I have been publishing release notes when we have functionality that is facing for you. So before we talk about the quarterly release, I just want to take a moment to highlight some of the great improvements we've had so far for 2023. For all of these, I'll include some instructions on how to configure them. But if you really want to get a deep dive into how to configure each of these bits of functionality, you can go back to the release notes from the last release, or you can review the webinar from last time when I did a deep dive, as I will for the features in the November release here shortly. We'll review some of these features you see on the screen here, including the ability to do a SAML for saved searches. This should work beyond CR via Summon, but our majority of testing so far has been around CR via Summon. But you should now be able to add SAML to saved searches as an option to log in. That will allow you to store those saved searches on Summon servers. In the past, we offered the social logins for Google and Microsoft. And for each of those, you could store your flat file of your saved searches on either your G drive for Google or your Microsoft OneDrive for that MS login. And so now with the SAML login, you can also store those on our servers. We know that some institutions have policies against using social logins or third-party servers like that. So the Summon server should help resolve that issue. This is GDPR compliant. And again, it's an addition to that Microsoft OneDrive and Google Drive logins. We also added Google Analytics support for Google Analytics 4. That improves the reporting overall by updating to the most recent version of Google Analytics available. That also includes the addition of Tag Manager support. You do not have to use Tag Manager, but if you are using Tag Manager in conjunction with Google Analytics, you can use that now, and Tag Manager is a component of Google Analytics. And something to note is that support for legacy analytics ended on July 1st. So if you haven't updated it since then, please do so you can continue to track that information if you're using Google Analytics. We also added scopes for Summon searches in the August release. Hopefully you've had some chance to go out and play with it a little bit. I think it's really exciting. It's a way for you to create filters or pre-facet settings to limit to a specific group versus searching everything in your catalog. So you can have those sort of predefined definitions, as you can see here on the screen grab. What you can do is you can create scopes and prioritize the display order when there are multiple scopes. You can limit to just local records. You can limit by content type, discipline, language, new records, and time period. You can add or remove resources by ISBN or ISSN. And you can add library location to a search scope. So basically, you can create a search scope that uses all of those various elements and have them pre-formatted. Like sometimes, a lot of sites will start off with newspaper articles and book reviews excluded from summon results. Well, if you have other combinations you want to do that are particularly useful for a specific audience, maybe it's alumni, maybe it's a specific school within your institution, maybe it's a specific library, this is a great way to add those preset scopes in your instance of Summon. So to configure it, you can find those controls in the admin console under settings and search scopes. Any existing ones will appear at the top that you can edit them, you can delete them, you can disable them, and you can choose which order they appear in. To create one, it's just basically using the advanced search form. You get a slightly different formatted advanced search form when you click the Add New Search Scope button. You then fill out the form how you want it to be basically set up for the search. Put in the name that you'd like to have it called, complete the form, and then hit save, and it will be saved to your instance of Summon. Again, we go into a lot more details in this in the August quarterly release webinar. So if you want to see more about how to configure that and how those work, please feel free to go back and review that. We also did some work to improve the quick look pane. This was a NERS feature that came via your input via the eLuna and Igloo, a new enhancement request system, which is where you vote on features. We pull them from the ID Exchange, so you contribute the features, and then you vote on them to determine what's going to be in the roadmap for the next year. And we just recently completed that, and I'm excited to see what comes out the other side for our roadmap for 2024. But for now, this feature came as part of the voting from last year. You had feedback on how the overall layout, it was a 2-column setup, which ended up with if there was information that was limited or missing, like an abstract that only had a 1-sentence description or was missing entirely, it created a lot of white space and a lot of wasted space on the quick look pane. We've adjusted that. Now it's a 1-column setup. You don't have to make any configurations for this. This is just how it is now, and it works much better and expands and collapses gracefully when there is or is not information available for a particular record. We also added the ability to include matches in full text to search suggestions. You can see that right there where the red box is. If you have the ability to include matches in full text set up on your site, then this option will appear as something that a user might do in order to have a more successful search. And again, this displays up automatically on the zero search results if you have your site configured to use the include matches in full text functionality. Again, there are great details in the last webinar about how to configure it, but basically, if you have it set up where you can see that little red arrow on the right-hand side there at the bottom, if that facet appears in your refine your search area of your instance of Summon, then that particular suggestion will appear for your users when they get a zero search results page on your institution's site. We also did another NERS feature, giving your input on how we can improve how to customize the elements in the right-hand pane. In the past, things like Topic Explorer, custom panels, Database Finder, the Database Finder widget. You basically could only have Database Finder widget show up on the right-hand side like it is with so many details in a search box or just a search box itself. And you couldn't necessarily determine the order of all of the elements. It was basically Topic Explorer on top, everything underneath it, or Topic Explorer on bottom. You can now be more flexible with that. You can configure how the SpringShare Database Finder widget appears now so that it doesn't have so many details and so many results. You can also determine the order of Database Finder, custom panels, and Topic Explorer so that you can determine that order a little bit better there as well. And again, that's a NERS feature that came about as part of your voting for last year. Another change we got in this year that was something that was popular on the Idea Exchange was the warning to save changes. I know I certainly appreciate this. When you make changes in the admin console, if you navigate away in the past, it would just lose your changes if you forgot to hit the save button. Now you'll get a warning before doing that. And if you hit cancel, you can go back and click the save button if you forgot, which I know I've done. So next, I want to talk some about the November release. As I mentioned, a lot of it isn't quite visible in the preview environment, but we've got a lot of really good functionality coming in here. There's a summary of the various features. I'll give you some more details on each one of those in just a moment. Let's dive in first and talk a little bit about your custom JavaScript. So we basically made some updates to how we render the UI, some of the elements involved in the back end. So we don't expect any issues with your custom JavaScript. We did testing against a variety of sites, and it looks like we should respect whatever custom JavaScript you have. And at the same time, since we've made these changes in the UI, I want to give you a heads up so that you can go out to your preview environment and check your JavaScript. So please take the time between now and next Wednesday, a week from tomorrow, to check your custom JavaScript and make sure that it's working in the preview environment. If you look at the release notes, that does include information on how to use the preview environment if you need more details on that. One particular feature, again, this is a NERS feature that came courtesy of your votes. The ability to match language settings for Summon with 360 Link. This works across, is sort of a nice feature because it connects the two products. The language set by the user in Summon should now be applied in the 360 Link so that when you get to that end page, it's in the same language that you started with in the Summon UI. Currently, that parameter isn't passed, and with this release, that will be addressed. Something I'm excited to talk about is an update we're getting because of CDI. On the Central Discovery Index, we've been doing a lot of work to normalize subject headings. So all English language subject headings in CDI have been mapped and deduped against the Library of Congress subject headings and NIH medical subject headings, or MESH. So both of those are now available for you to use instead of your current subject headings. So if you would like to, you can make those in place of what you have currently. Currently, the subject headings include both of those sources of subject headings, but it also includes a lot of information from your local cataloging and some of your local terms you might be using. So because those sometimes show up in other people's instances of Summon, you may want to switch to this new normalized subject heading. But to configure this, you'll need to turn on the normalized subject headings in the admin console. You'll find that under settings and subject term. For the control, use normalized CD subjects. So you see there on the right-hand side, you switch it to custom and turn it to on, click the save button at the bottom, and that will switch it over. And what this will do is it will replace your current subject terms with these new normalized subject headings. So they'll be replaced, and the subject headings that could not be mapped, including all non-English subjects, are still available for display and search when the new normalized subject headings are in use. Again, if you don't want to turn this on, you can stay with the way that you have it currently. But if you turn on the new subject headings, those will still be available for display on the quick look page and in the results sets. And it will also be searched when you search the various fields. It will be a separate field, so it will have a slightly different weighting, but almost the exact same as the current subject headings. Again, once you do that, the one big change is the subject terms facet that you see on the left-hand side will now be pulling from those normalized subject headings and won't include any other non-mapped or local subject headings. We also made some updates to scopes. I talked to you a little bit about that earlier as something we completed in the August release. We heard you loud and clear about providing better feedback or visuals on if the scope is active and what's active within that scope. Now the facets applied as part of the scope will be displayed at the top of the facet pane. In addition, if you change any of the parameters, if you deselect any one of them, which will basically change it so that it's no longer the scope that was applied, you will get a warning that says you're about to leave the circulating collection, or whatever the name of the particular collection is that you're using, and have the option to cancel and stay there and use those various facets if you'd like. Please try this out in the preview environment. I'd love your feedback. We're also adding the ability to display 5xx note fields in Summon. This has been a top idea on the Idea Exchange for a while. The community has made space for this by voting it a top item on the NERS voting for 2023, and we will be delivering that here shortly. This is one of those going to require some configuration in the back end. So basically what this will do is allow you to display both the label and the value for any 5xx field that you have. If the field is not available for that particular record, the the label, and of course, since there's no information, none of that will be displayed, and it will degrade gracefully. So in other words, if there's nothing to display, you won't realize it because the quick look will adjust accordingly. So as I mentioned a moment ago, this will require some mapping and content processing on our end. This will require implementation assistance by Ex Libris. You'll need to reach out to support. We will provide instructions in a form for requesting this change with the release. Time to implementation for your institution will depend on the request volumes. We're not sure exactly how many people will request this and how quickly they will want it, but we will address it as quickly as we can when we get the release. But again, this is exciting because you will be able to display any of your 5xx fields on the QuickLook page there. Another CDI change that we've got is some changes to how we're working with unpaywall. It's now available as a collection. So previously, the unpaywall links were added as part of augmenting records. What that means or why that is important to you is that when we augment the records, when we do that with a variety of different information for speed mainly, is that we would do the search, do the relevance based on the search, display and build facets off of the search, and then augment or add the link after that search result are returned. That meant quicker time to getting this feature out and fast response time for displaying unpaywall links. What it meant, though, was that sometimes you'd have an unpaywall link that's an open access link for a particular record, and it's the only open access link for that record, and the record would basically not have knowledge that it's open access. So you wouldn't get the open access indicator on the individual result, and if you were to facet using the open access facet, it would not be recognized as an open access piece of content, even though it had an unpaywall link associated with it. So now that it's a collection, that will be a nice change. So what that means is that records merged with unpaywall records will be flagged as having an open access option. Labeling and faceting in the search result page will be more consistent and accurate. So all of that will be great. In order to do it, it will mean a change in the back end. We will no longer be doing the augmentation of the unpaywall link. So if you want to continue to use unpaywall links in your results, you'll need to subscribe to the collection in Client Center after the release. It will be the same way that you do with a variety of other collections. I'll send out a reminder with instructions. And what you should know is that index unpaywall links, they'll be returned by CDI as regular IEDL links at this point. Which will also mean that you're able to manage it in the standard linking logic that we have. They'll be returned as a link to PDF element or link to full text in HTML. Some of the search results. Quick looks links will take precedence over those, since that's direct links to paid content that you have. Then unpaywall links, and then what other priorities that you have set for your link. So again, you'll need to add unpaywall as a collection in Client Center. We'll make sure we include some instructions on that closer to the release or after the release. And then the final big feature that we have for the November release is the preventing ebooks and computer file records from merging. There are a variety of records that are labeled as computer files that get merged with ebooks more often than not, if not all the times. These shouldn't be merging. A computer file is not necessarily an ebook and vice versa. So what we will do is we will prevent those from merging with any other content type. That second bullet should say, this does require some content processing and will begin after the November release. So it will come in over time, but you'll see that improvement over the next few months. And that is a NERS feature that was voted on by you for 2023. And then one quick thing I want to touch base on is both accessibility and analytics. With accessibility, we are constantly reviewing our features and making sure that they're as accessible as possible. We also get feedback from you and your patrons. Anytime we get feedback for those types of things, we immediately put those at the front of the queue and address them as quickly as we possibly can. And at the beginning of the year, so in the next couple of months, we will do a holistic assessment for accessibility for our site and build that into the 2024 development process as well. Because technology, browsers, hardware, access points are all changing regularly. This is something that's an ongoing process, and we make it a priority to make sure it's there. We're also excited about the ongoing work we're doing with the analytics. If you went to Illuna or Igloo, you would have heard some conversations about Mixpanel and some testing we're doing around there for providing some new reporting in the UI. And we look forward to being able to do some more of that in 2024, which takes me to a sneak peek for what we had in 2024. So this is not final. We're in the process of just in the last few weeks, the NERS voting wrapped up. I'm now working with the development team to start to size and prioritize and see sort of the scope and shape of things. We'll work with the working group on those NERS candidates and provide the final details and official features for the 2024 roadmap in the next few months. But things that are at the top of the list right now is certainly finishing the LTI support that we've been working on this year, improving the search widget, so that includes scopes and things like that, doing some work on analytics like the user interface analytics I was just mentioning, and of course the great NERS candidates that you voted on as well. So next I want to talk a little bit about some improvements that we've got via CDI. A couple of them I've already talked about because they are part of the November release, but there are a few things I want to do a little bit more of a deep dive in there as well, particularly secondary resource types. But one thing we've been working on and we continue to work on, kind of like we do with accessibility, is data quality and rights enhancements. This year, we've reduced CDI rights processing from about 48 to 72 hours down to 24 to 30 hours on average. We've been working on data quality, including improving consistency of language and publication date fields, better identification of book reviews, and as I just discussed, the addition of unpaywall, improving how we handle open access content. Other longer-term data projects, I'm about to talk to you about one that's been in place, and I'd like to share with you the impact on Summon and the functionality there. That's the addition of secondary resource types for CDI. We're also working on connecting more author names to ORCID IDs and possibly other IDs and normalizing those author names. As I talked about earlier, that normalized subject work that you're seeing now in the Summon preview environment is a direct result of that back-end work on CDI. So let's take a moment to talk a little bit about secondary resource types for CDI. So what those are specific bits of information about a type of record. They don't replace the current content types. They add to it. They're to display additional information about the record or item in the brief display and quick look. And they allow filters or searches on those secondary types as part of the secondary content facet. So you can go into your facets in the back end and add this as a facet in your facet pane. So there's one that's a secondary content type. You can just drag and drop that to the facet column and make it available. So what are the types of things that can show up? So that one that I just showed you a moment ago, hold on, I'll back up. On the right-hand side, you see that red box around primary source. That's one type known as the regular content, secondary resource type content. And then there's a warning type, which you can see here on the right-hand side around redacted publications or a retraction notice. So the regulars displays indicators in the brief display of a record and search results and quick look. The warnings display above the brief display of a record in the search results to call attention to it, because those, again, are a little bit more, they're a warning more than just a regular one. So what are the types of secondary resource types that you can get in CDI right now? Here's a list of all the currently supported ones: review article and primary source. Those are two things that we've had in the past, and we've now folded into this larger project and improved the logic for identifying those. Also, preprint, retracted publication, retraction notice, and publications with origin. Sorry, my pronunciation today. If you want to see more about this, there's a lot of good details, including information, just definitions of these content types, details on types planned for future releases, and instructions on how to configure all this. You can find it by searching on secondary content types at the knowledge base for Summon. I just did this search myself, so I know the first three links when you search on that exact phrase will turn up all of the things I just mentioned, which is definitions of the types, details on plan for future releases, and instructions on how to configure. Other search and ranking projects we've been working on, new item searches, search enhancements with AI. This came in the first quarter of the year. And basically what this is using machine learning to identify and parse citations for more accurate results. You know your patrons like to copy an entire citation and paste it into the search box. all the punctuation and extraneous information there can actually confuse algorithms, but we're using this AI tool to break that into various pieces and return that known item, hopefully as the number one result. We've also added the support of Malengo, which is a Hebrew search plugin. And as always, we do ongoing enhancements based on feedback and new content as it comes in. And then finally, for everyone who might be using quick links, or if you're not, you should certainly take a look at it and hopefully add this to your instance. Adding more content providers has been a priority for this year. We have 39 supported providers. And if you're not familiar with quick links, this is working directly with the publishers to have a direct link to either PDF or HTML full text. So the accuracy of these links are 99%. So it's a really excellent way to make sure that your patrons are getting the content that they are looking for. There's over 16,000 collections with 1.5 billion records that have these links. So if you haven't activated this functionality, please do, because it does make a big difference in how successful your linking can be for your patrons. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Amy.
Thank you, Brent. Sounds like you have a lot of great things going on in our Q4 release for Summon. To complement those features, we have several things going on in the 360 and Intoda Q4 release. That is coming out or being deployed on November 1st, next Wednesday. And excuse me, as ever, there will be no downtime for this. So it will just be deployed during your working day or during your sleeping hours. Our highlights include several things that are building off some of the NERS projects that we delivered earlier in the year. The first is open access indicators and management reports. Second is allowing login to summon usage statistics from Intoda. We have a couple of new 360 linkers. We are doing our evergreen sushi harvesting improvements, and we also have Ulrich's Web UI enhancements. Generally, I don't talk about Ulrich's Web so much, except I wanted to excuse me, I wanted to let everyone know that the 360 and Intoda team does support that because it's such an integral part of our software. So a lot of work did go into being able to make some of those enhancements. Next, please. So the open access indicators, we delivered this in Q3 within Client Center and Intoda to show you at the database and the title level what percentage of the database contains or is open access rather, and if a particular title is open access. One of the great feedback items that we got from the product working group almost immediately during one of our monthly meetings was like, hey, you know what? I'd really like to see that in management reports. When I export that information from Client Center or from Intoda, I want to have that information at hand in spreadsheets. So we included it in database details, tracked resources, and tracked e-journal reports. Again, this is based on authoritative data from Ulrich's Web. Some eagle eyes out there have reported that there's some differences in what they believe to be open access versus what Ulrich's Web is reporting. And I do want you to know that we're working on reconciling those things, but we want to do it in the authoritative source itself, right? Ulrich's Web. We don't want to start messing around on our 360 and Intoda side so that we have incongruent data. Now, what you'll see starting next week is that in the database details report, there is an open access percentage column. So much as exactly as you see right now in the application, if, for example, it's 97% open access data, then you will see that reflected in the report. In both the tracked resources report and in the tracked e-journals report, for those individual titles, you will see that there is a yes, no flag and a new column called open access or OA. So you can quickly identify which title is open access or not. Next, please. So this is a follow-up to an improvement that we did, and this is also a NERS idea and from the Idea Exchange. This is allowing a login to the summon usage statistics from the Entoda administrative section. We rolled this out for Client Center in Q3. So this is the accompanying or the complementary functionality in Entoda. And this allows Entoda users to authenticate into and use summon usage statistics without having to give them full summon administrative permissions. So they just have the ability to do to look at and work with summon usage statistics, and the account permission, as evidence here, is summon usage statistics, and it needs to be set to view edit, and that will make the link to summon usage statistics appear in the administrative section of the homepage. Next, please. So we have a couple of things going on for 360 Link and Sushi. There are new linkers going out. These are Java linkers, New York for New York Review and Duke University Press. And I'm making the distinction between Java linkers and XML linkers. We do have a dedicated team that works on XML linkers, and those are released on a monthly basis, and probably you're not going to know much about them. It's just something that happens in rotation and automatically. But when we do have to have our developers work on a Java linker, I do want to call attention to it. So again, in this case, it's for the New York Review and Duke University Press. I mentioned that Sushi R5 harvesting improvements are an ongoing perennial pleasure to work with. We're always learning new things about new providers and how they've implemented the excuse me, the standard. So in this case, we have made some improvements for the American Society for Cell Biology, American College of Physicians, and I think it's pronounced Beagle House, but I could be wrong about that. Next, please. And finally, one of our highlights, as I said, is Ulrich's Web UI enhancements. We've done a great deal of work. The 360 and Entoda team has done a great deal of work in updating the user interface for Ulrich's Web and USAS this year. And so these are some follow-on enhancements to really round out accessibility, compliance, and deliver an excellent user experience. This includes things like the My Ulrichs display for marked titles and saved lists, the delete icon, and some additional USAS pages that have been upgraded to the new framework. Next, please. Finally, sneak peek at 2024. As Brent said, we're looking at the NERS projects that are coming in. We will be ready to deliver our roadmaps soon. And I know that folks are looking forward to additional auto holdings management capabilities beyond Taylor and Francis, which I hope everyone who is eligible has turned on and is using. We are working with Springer right now. We're in conversations and trying to get that flow going. A new project that has come up is the necessity to support IPv6, Internet Protocol v6. IPv4 is way out of date. We know that we need to bring our applications up to date in order to support v6. NERS. Sorry about that. NERS projects, hopefully we've got some good candidates that are ready to go. And of course, we'll comb through the ideas exchange and try to address everything that we can. And one other thing that is ongoing that we've been working on this year, I didn't put it as a highlight because you aren't going to be able to see anything right now, but the auto normalization project, this is the one that will allow identifiers from multiple records to be merged into a single so that you do not have to call support or open a case with support and say, please add this ISBN or this ISSN to this record. They're the same thing. Understandably, our metadata librarians are very cautious about automating anything like this. So we're working hand in hand with them to ensure that this is going to be a smooth rollout and really safeguards the metadata. So we'll have more information about 360 and TOTA as things shake out, especially with NERS, and as we go through the ideas exchange, and the roadmap will be published towards the end of the year. That's it for me, Brent.
Thank you. So next, I want to talk a little bit about some of the community opportunities you have to learn and connect here in Q4. We have some upcoming Illuna Learns webinars, and we have some Library Journal webinar on November 2nd. And again, for the links here, we'll make sure we provide them after the fact so that you can access those. But some of the things we have coming up online, 3 different opportunities for Illuna Learns coming in October, November, and December. Analytics is coming up actually tomorrow on the 25th at 1 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. Topics covered by that will be published without perishing, making the most of Alma publishing, Spring Share integration with Xlibris tools, and simplify your batch cataloging with Alma to mark edit integration. And with all of these, of course, if these times don't work for you, I assume they're like all others, and you'll be able to sign up for them and get a recording after the fact. So even if these times don't work, sign up so you can get the recording. Second one is metadata management and government documents. That's coming on November 1st, so in about a week from tomorrow. That time again is 1 o'clock Eastern Daylight Times. Topics include archive, data enrichment and pen, resolving mixed format government documentation records in the Alma's network zone, and rectifying e-resource recording records can be using normalization indication rules, OpenRefine, and Python script. And that's a week from tomorrow on Wednesday, November 1st. And then a week after that, you've got acquisition and discovery on Wednesday, November 8th. Again, at 1 o'clock Eastern Daylight Times. Topics include templates, lists, and other great hits, top 5 Rialto features to level up your collection development, learning about Rialto is everywhere, integrations for streamlining work, and not just another display, enhancing browsability with Primo collections and Founding Library. So we're looking forward to those. We also got the Library Journal webinar on November 2nd. It's Unlocking Connections, How Linked Open Data Benefits Library Users. That's coming up on Thursday, November 2nd. 11 a.m. New York time, 3 p.m. London time. The topics include collaborating with the community, bringing linked open data into libraries, excuse me, and creating a metadata ecosystem of global discoverability and comprehensive interoperability. Setting will make these links available after the fact so that you can easily click on those in the email we send out. And they can also be found on our webinar page. So for the one tomorrow, if you want to go sign up for that, you can just go to the Knowledge Center and look at our webinar page and sign up for those. They're also, I always provide a link to those to that page in the notifications for this webinar. So if you want to go find it easily, you can do it there too. And that brings us to the end of our prepared slides. We've actually got a couple of items there. And thank you for the person for Amy, posted those links in the chat as well. So if you want to go look at those webinars, you can get those from the link in chat. First, the one question I have right now, and please, if you have any others, submit them via chat or the Q&A tool. So the question is, where have we heard of quick links, or where's their documentation? Also wondering if this is meant to match or respond to functionality offered by libkey or Lean Library. So I'll provide some links for quick links here. Again, after the recording, I'll send those out and post them to the listserv. But basically, yes, it is similar to what you see with libkey and Lean Library. It's not quite the same as what they're doing. It's certainly meant to match what they're doing there. And it works in conjunction. There are a lot of institutions that have libkey or Lean Library turned on for their instance of Summon, and they use quick links as well, because all of the programs are about how do you get that direct link to the full text, and working directly with publishers to do that. There is some overlap in the publishers between the various offerings, but there's not a complete overlap, so you get some unique things from each one of those you use. So if you already use libkey or Lean Library, it still does benefit you to turn on quick links. And unfortunately, I don't have a link handy with me. I'll make sure that I post that to the listserv or follow up directly. And that's a great question. Other questions? Okay, well, while we're waiting for that, Amy, if you'd like, let's start us up with our wrap up.
Yeah, absolutely. So everyone, thanks a lot for joining us. We appreciate you giving up some time in your day to hear what's going on with Summon and 360. And we thank you for being terrific customers. Please reach out to us if you have any questions about either 360 and TOTA or Summon. Thanks a lot.
Yes, and I would like to echo that. Thank you so much for your active participation with the Summit community. It's your input that makes our products as great as they are. I will, as I mentioned, share this webinar after the fact. And thank you so much for taking the time to share with us today and ask your questions. And please let us know what else we can do to help. Thanks and take care.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.